Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. I'm Mike Iarapino. Welcome to the channel, Mike. You're coming off of an awesome YouTube channel and joining us here on Fireside Giants. I'm really excited to get started with a new co-host. This is only the second episode, so we have a lot to talk about, essentially, with the offseason, in full swing. And I kind of want to start right now with Leonard Williams and, talk about a little bit how he wants $15 million per season. And I think that's a little nuts. Mike just recorded a video on Fireside Giants YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, go hit that up, subscribe. We're going to have tons of awesome content coming out, and I think you guys are going to love it. So, Mike, take it away with Leonard Williams.
Yeah, so, thanks for having me, of course. This is my first podcast, so we'll see how this goes, of course. But, Leonard Williams, hearing he wants $15 million per year was, as I said on Twitter before, a bit too rich for my blood or my thinking, whatever it is. So, I would want to pay him around $12 million per year. Of course, it's going to be like a 4 or 5 year deal considering the guy is 25 years old. So if I'm the GM, I'd rather have like a 4-year deal, $48 million type of range. But, this guy, I'm all for players trying to get their money. So if he wants $15 million per year, then by all means go ahead. But, as the days go on, this trade that was made at the trade deadline is looking worse and worse right now for the Giants. Mm-hmm. But if it was up to me, I would say no more than $12 million. That's where I'm going.
I agree. $12 million seems like a good deal. We're talking about a guy who had no sacks with the Jets, was traded to the Giants. He started in only 5 games. He played in 8 games for the Giants. He had 0.5 sacks. Right. So we're talking about a guy that we're expecting to generate interior pressure and only had half a sack. And we saw the run-stopping numbers, their grades increased for the Giants on the defensive side of the ball. They looked better stopping the run, but their pass rush wasn't that much better. And I don't think we're paying $15 million for a player who's going to generate some run-stopping ability. I saw some people on Twitter, commenting saying, he deserves the money. He can generate that interior pressure. He can stop the run. He's worth it. Personally, I don't think that he is worth that money just because they can allocate that cap space towards an actual pass rusher. And especially with Patrick Graham coming in as DC, I think he's going to play a hybrid defense with a 3-4 and a 4-3, mixing and matching. And I don't want to be paying $15 million to a guy that's going to be a rotational pass rusher. That doesn't really make sense to me. Anthony, what are you thinking about this? Do you think this is a good move for the Giants?
No, I think it would be a terrible move for the Giants. I think $15 million a year for essentially a 2-down player and a primary run stuffer in a passing league is an awful idea. I'll say he is better than his stats suggest. He did have 17 pressures and 10 quarterback knockdowns. So he did apply some pressure, even though he only ended up with a half a sack. But still, at the same time, $15 million for 17 pressures, you're almost paying $1 million per pressure. Like, that's a pretty terrible ratio there, man.
No, I agree. It's a little crazy from Dave Gettleman's perspective as well, because I feel like he might take a pride approach to this and be like, okay, I made this trade. I'm going to sign him because I feel kind of shitty about, letting him walk and giving up that early 3rd round pick. And
that's the scary part.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. They're going to land in the 95 range in the 3rd round when they were in the upper tier of that round. And that's where I'm a little concerned, is they're giving up a lot of, equity there. And it can't become a pride thing. Gettleman has to stick to his guns like he did with Patrick O'Malley, letting him go. He was on a 3-year, $15 million deal. Let him go. Let Williams go, live to see another day and save that cap space allocated towards a tackle. Nate Solder is a big question mark now. So there's a lot of positions that we need help at. I was actually writing an article today and just thinking about how many positions the Giants really do need help at. We're talking like cornerback, linebacker, pass rusher, offensive tackle, even the center position. There's so many positions that we can be like, okay, you could invest a ton of capital into this. And it's getting a little scary to think about. We have almost $80 million in cap space and a 4th overall pick, and we still might not be able to fix this team this offseason.
Yeah, obviously I hope this is fixed by next year. We want to make the playoffs after 3 terrible years in a row. But my positive spin on Leonard Williams, the one thing you could say about him is he never misses games. I don't think he's missed a game or maybe one game in the 4 or 5 years he's been in the NFL. So, it won't be a total disaster. It won't be Olivier Vernon. Vernon missed, half the season in his final year here, I believe. So, it won't be like that. But he shows up every week. He gets his, his pressures and whatnot. He doesn't really show up in the stat sheet too much. But at least for Leonard Williams, you can rely on him. It just depends on how much you pay him, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's always going to be the problem is how much money he really wants. And we gave up 2 draft picks to get him, a third, and if we re-sign him, it'll be a fourth next year too. And those are critical, crucial picks that we really need as a rebuilding team. We've got a young core, and I get, yeah, we need some veteran experience, but I wouldn't want to pay 15 million annually for that veteran experience. I think that money can be better spent elsewhere in a phase of the game that matters more. Maybe, a defensive back. We're going to get into that in a little bit. And a pass rusher, most definitely. I would definitely rather get the money spent on an edge rusher than an interior defensive lineman who's on the field 2 plays per drive.
I agree, and like that's kind of where I'm leading into the defensive lineman aspect of this. And I posted a tweet today, kind of listing all the good pass rushers that are available, and it seems like a lot of them can be franchise tagged, and they might not go to the Giants. They might not want to go to the Giants. There's a lot of other teams with cap space that are more winning teams, and people are like, oh, the Giants could turn it around like the San Francisco 49ers did and become a playoff team right off the bat. That is so unlikely. Like, don't fall into that trap of optimism, because the reality is the Giants have a new head coach. They're missing players at essential positions that are generally you need to succeed in the NFL. And a lot of the options that are pass rushers in free agency this season are injury prone, or they will be tagged. I know Yannick Ngakoue is a big one. I mean, he had 9 sacks last year, but he's not like an elite pass rusher. He's very good, but he's not in the elite category. You have a Jadeveon Clowney, who's also really good, but he's also been injured. So it really depends on where they want to allocate that cap space. But I want to get into some of the free agents that we have talked about. I know, Ant, you were talking about Byron Jones as one of the guys that you like, young player coming out of Dallas as a free agent, and that he could fit into the Giants' scheme. I want to hear a little bit about how you think he will fit in.
Yeah, so my favorite part about Byron Jones is he's not just a cornerback. He initially played safety when he entered the league, and he's really athletic. He's big and lanky. He's like 6 feet, maybe 6'1", and he's got the ability to cover tight ends and like the big body receivers. And Giants fans all know, I mean, maybe this past year we did fine against tight ends, but in the past we've gotten killed by tight ends in the fourth quarter, let up a lot of big games. Byron Jones would pretty much take the tight end out of the game. I mean, you put him on Zach Ertz, and that's 2 games where you're not going to get killed by a tight end, because Byron Jones, he's super athletic. He doesn't get a whole lot of interceptions, but that's because he's not getting a whole lot of balls thrown his way, not getting a whole lot of completions in his zone either, or his man coverage either. And I think he's the perfect piece to shut down tight ends, big body receivers, and he's got the athleticism. I think, at, 27 years old? I think that's a perfect signing.
I hear that. I think, like you said, Byron Jones, young, 27 years old, that's a guy you can, depend on for a few years on a multi-year deal. And I like the idea of him being able to cover multiple positions, whether it be tight end or a big-bodied receiver. The Giants had a lot of problems with big-bodied receivers last year. I was thinking Janoris Jenkins. I'm just recalling that game that we somehow won against Tampa Bay, and Mike Evans literally torched him for like 3 touchdowns and 200 yards. And I'm like, Janoris Jenkins, I can see, the thing is, I consider Janoris Jenkins the number 1 corner. Like, I think he's a really good cornerback when he's on a good team, when he has a good defense to play around. Yeah. But that game was one of the worst games I've ever seen. Like, every single play, like Jameis Winston, he threw like 30 touchdowns and like 30 interceptions, and he's just launching balls downfield, and Janoris Jenkins just getting bodied. Like I remember when I used to play like backyard football, and I used to use like Plaxico Burress, like when he would jump over people. I think it was against the Jets that one time. He jumped over, I think it was Cromartie, and just like completely, we called the being burst basically. Just like, or you were Plaxicoed, and like that's essentially, or Mossed or Plaxicoed, like. Literally, that's what Janoris Jenkins had happen to him, but he was Evansed, and that doesn't sound good. So I don't like having to say that. And Janoris Jenkins, he's a good guy, and he's a good cornerback. I mean, aside from the ridiculous comments he made and got himself kicked off the team, like that never helps your, the ethical, perspective on your game. But like, the Giants need a number 1 corner, and Byron Jones, it seems like he can be that guy. And like you said, it doesn't really matter about the interception numbers or the pass breakups, because if you're not throwing to the guy, he's not going to have that, many solid statistics to show for it. So that's the good thing about cornerbacks. If you don't hear about cornerbacks, it's just the same thing as like on the offensive line. If you don't hear about an offensive lineman, that means they're probably playing pretty well. So I like that idea, and I know Mike has another guy in Brian Poole, which is a little bit of under the radar guy. So I remember him from the Jets, and I only remember negative things about Brian Poole because Jets fans would always be like, all my friends are Jets fans, so they'd always say, Brian Poole sucks. And I'm like, why? And like, obviously they have no idea about anything about football. They're just watching, him get torched on that one play. So I want to hear what Mike has to say and why Brian Poole is a good option for the Giants.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. He was like one of the bright spots for the Jets defense last year, which obviously struggled a lot. But the reason for Brian Poole here, I mean, it's going to be a cheap deal. He was signed by the Jets for 1 year, $3 million last year, coming from the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, yeah, I'll admit he had some tough years in Atlanta. I get that. But last year he was phenomenal in the slot for them. He's 27 years old, coming off a good year. He's only missed 3 games in the last 4 years. And, the Jets defense was underwhelming as a whole. But you look at him, Brian Poole, being the one player who actually had a pretty good season for them. And if you're going to have Brian Poole, it's probably not going to cost a crazy amount of money. Like every time you're in free agency, you have to hit on those guys that like are not going to like break the bank for you, like making signings for guys worth $2 million to $5 million per year. That's how you build a good team. So you have that. You also have the slot corners for the Giants being, Corey Ballantyne and Grant Haley, guys we can't really trust going into 2020. So do you really want to go with those guys another year? I would say no to that. And then, of course, you have the younger guys on the outside and DeAndre Baker and Sam Beal. You hope they take their game to the next level, but why not have a veteran slot corner who's actually, a pretty solid player on a cheap contract?
Yeah, I mean, that's a completely fair argument. I like him in a slot position. And like you said, Grant Haley is, we can't really trust him in coverage. He was really good against the run, and that's what I like him playing. Like he can come up and and stop the run at the line of scrimmage, and he's really good at identifying those plays. But if Brian Poole is better in coverage and he had a good season last season, I don't see why the Giants can't, take a flyer on him and see what's good. It can't hurt to invest a minimal cap space if it's going to be a $2 million, $10 million deal on 2 years. Like, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. But for my free agent, I picked Devin McCourty of New England. I think that he is a great option to bring in just because he has the familiarity with Joe Judge coming from New England as well. I think that, he can provide that stability in the defensive secondary. Just as a free safety, we had Antoine Bethea last year, and I don't trust that guy at all. If you guys saw him last year in coverage, it was like Forrest Gump playing in free safety for the Giants, like prior to him breaking out of the chains. So it was like,
Curtis Riley, man. Oof.
That's what I'm saying. Like bad angle Riley, bad angle Curtis, and Antoine No Legs Bethea back there in the secondary. So like, what are you gonna do at this point? You have to go out and find an actual free safety that can fill the void. And I think Devin McCourty is that guy because he had 5 interceptions last year compared to Bethea's 1 interception that he had on the line of scrimmage. So you remember that game against Dallas, Dak Prescott, like first play of the game, he threw it. I think it was like a short post route to the tight end, and Bethea's literally standing right there, like 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage, not even playing free safety. That's what I'm saying. You can't miss it. Yeah. And you have a guy like Bethea who's like can't play free safety, but he's playing strong safety. He's close to the line of scrimmage. He gets an interception. Like that's what he's good at. And I think the Giants need to make a change and actually bring in a guy that had 58 tackles, 5 interceptions, 7 passes defended, and has tons of experience. The guy hasn't missed a game in 5 years. So he's going to be a reliable option in terms of health. So I'm really excited to see where the Giants go with this. He will be a little bit more expensive, obviously, but there's no problem in investing in a guy that will help the secondary excel, especially with his veteran leadership. I think that, the quarterbacks will learn from him, just like, I saw an interview with DeAndre Baker a few days ago, and he was saying how Antoine Bethea was like a really good veteran presence for him in the locker room, and he learned a lot. I think Devin McCourty is way better in terms of just veteran leadership and actual talent on the field. Yeah. That talent next to exactly, like it's kind of funny how much better McCourty is. And I think when you have a good free safety and a good guy in the secondary kind of, managing things, it helps those younger guys excel far beyond what they thought they could, especially with Baker having a really tough 2019 and rookie season. So I think McCourty is the guy that I'm looking at for the Giants, especially to, dive into, look at it for a multi-year deal. I know he's a little bit older, but you can't really invest enough when you have a secondary who's like, I think the average age is like 23 years old, 22 years old. Like these guys are younger than I am, and I'm 23. So it's pretty insane. I feel like, I've gone nowhere with my life at this point because they're really playing in the NFL and I'm only 23.
Devin's a local guy too, right? I think with the Rutgers, right?
Yeah, I know. He actually grew up in my town. I went to in Nyack, so I grew up in Nyack, and him and his brother also they host football camp at the school every single year, and it's pretty cool. They grew up like right in the center of Nyack, and they grew a lot of people coming from Nyack. My neighbor is Terrence Fidei. He actually played for the Giants in spring training last spring, so that was like a crazy moment. I yelled across the street. I was like, "Yo, Terrence! Like, I can't believe you just made the Giants. That's crazy." So I'll have to try and get him on here one day and see if he has any insight about Pat Shurmur and what kind of went wrong during the preseason there last year. Mm-hmm. So see, yeah, I remember he had a sack last year on a fourth down stop on the goal line. I forget exactly who it was against, but it was during the preseason. They let him go. They released him. But either way, back to the secondary. Devin McCourty, I think, is a great option. I also really like Julian Love back there. I know no one's really mentioned his name, but he can also play that slot position, free safety. I think that he's a guy that shouldn't be, tossed aside just yet. He showed a lot of potential. He only really started the second half of the year, and not even the second half. It was really the last quarter of the year. And Love, he showed that ability to come up and make plays against the run and in coverage. He has some of his rookie gaffes, but, do you guys also agree, and I know Ann was telling me before that, he's excited to see what Love has, and he wrote a few articles about him. And do you think that, he can be that guy to fill in, or is he more of a rotational piece at this point?
Yeah, no, I'm a pretty big Julian Love fan, and I think the reason that Love fits into the equation so well is because of his versatility and because Jabrill Peppers really shouldn't be playing deep safety all the time. They should have Peppers up in the box more often than not, and Julian Love has the ability to play deep safety. He's got a lot more range and pretty good coverage ability because he used to play slot cornerback in college. So I like him as like the free safety, and then Peppers would be the strong safety, drop down into the box. And if Devin McCourty was signing, he'd be the rotational piece to me, because I think you want to get, maybe Julian Love would rotate because McCourty is a little more veteran presence and a little more reliable at this point. But I do think Love is going to project well into that starting free safety role, and I think that's where he fits best.
I can agree with that. I mean, that's the one thing that would put the kibosh on my, Brian Poole signing over here. If we have Julian Love, it really depends on what the new defensive coordinator Patrick Graham wants to do. I mean, if a team comes in here, I think he played a lot more corner in college. Obviously, I don't even think he played safety in college, Julian Love. So, when I watched him in college, he was really good at sticking with his receiver. I liked him a lot. He was one of the guys I listed on my old channel that I liked, before the draft happened. And I was very happy the Giants got him. I wish he was playing more last year, obviously. And when he was on the field, he wasn't that bad. I mean, he might have had a couple blunders. I know he missed one tackle in the Dolphins game on like Albert Wilson, but other than that, he was like really perfect, honestly. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play more next year. He could start next to Jabrill Peppers, but honestly, they could put him in slot corner. It would not bother me at all.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And I actually always forget about Jabrill Peppers. I mean, he missed like the second half of the season. I always, for whatever reason, just forget about Peppers. And he's one of those guys that I'm super excited about because he looked pretty good last year. I mean, he had that pick six against Washington against Dwayne Haskins, which made me feel really good because it wasn't Daniel Jones. But I actually think he's going to have a really good second year. And like you guys said, Julian Love is a really promising talent. And I think getting him in the fourth round was an absolute steal. That's incredible they were able to get him in the fourth round. I thought he was going to be a third or second round pick, but I'm intrigued to see what they do with him because, like you guys said, he played cornerback primarily at Notre Dame, and I think, or Notre Dame, however you guys want to say it. So it's kind of cool to see them trying to make him into a versatility and a utility guy. I always kind of think about baseball in that sense. He's kind of like a utility player. They can plug him in. They want him to be able to plug in a free safety, at cornerback, at slot cornerback, at strong safety, be a kind of like a jack of all trades player, which is really cool for the Giants, who have suffered ridiculous amount of injuries the past few years. Exactly. Exactly. So I think he's a special player, and I'm excited to see how he develops because it's really hard to learn one position in the NFL, and to learn 4 different positions is incredibly difficult. And maybe they see him as a high IQ player who can actually do that and understand the scheme. But if Patrick Graham's coming in with a 4-3 and a 3-4 and a lot of different mix-ups and mashes, it should be exciting to see how they utilize him and Jabrill Peppers, alongside each other, especially if they go out and sign a guy like Devin McCourty. But as for the next thing, I don't really know. Are you guys thinking about Saquon Barkley? What do you guys think about Saquon Barkley bouncing back in year 3? I think that, after, it's kind of crazy to me that he had a 1,000-yard rushing year in his second season and he missed 4 4 games or 5 games. He had a high ankle sprain almost the entire way, and he still broke 1,000 yards. That's crazy. Like you could even say that's not even a bounce back year next year. But I think for him, the expectations that he has on himself, I'm pretty excited to see how he looks, especially if they're going to build the offensive line back up. And if they move Nate Solder to right tackle, if they keep him at left tackle, they're probably going to sign somebody or draft somebody. I'm pretty excited to see, what. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk Andrew Thomas. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, Mike. What do you think about Andrew Thomas? Because I know you are high on him.
We're doing the draft stuff already?
We're doing the draft stuff already.
All right, cool. All right. So, of course, Andrew Thomas, left tackle for Georgia. I mean, look at team need here. Nate Solder's been a Giant now for 2 years. It's been very underwhelming. His first year had a down first half, a better second half, and then all of 2019 was really not that good, to be honest. I know he had some kind of ankle injury in the preseason or training camp, whatever it was. So maybe he was playing injured, but we don't really have that proof, honestly. So if they do draft Andrew Thomas, they could move him to move Nate Solder to the right tackle, which obviously seems like the most likely outcome here because you can't cut him. I don't know the financials off the top of my head, but I think his dead cap is like $12 million. So
yeah,
it's
crazy.
Doesn't seem that they're going to do that. But Thomas as a player, I love him. And speaking of Saquon Barkley, I mean, Andrew Thomas at the left tackle position is a crazy blocker, gets into the second level like really fast and just has these great quick feet for a guy who's like, 6'5", 320 pounds. And when I rated him as a 9.5 out of 10. I saw like maybe 2 or 3 plays out of like the 4 or 5 games I watched of him getting beat on the outside on passing plays. But outside of that, he was honestly pretty perfect. And, people talk about Becton from Louisville, and then we have like Jedrick Wills from Alabama, who did play right tackle. But honestly, I think Thomas is the most safe guy. And obviously, I hope they trade back, to 5 or 6 and accumulate more draft picks. That would be the best situation, obviously. But if you draft an Andrew Thomas, he's your hopefully franchise left tackle for 10 to 15 years. Daniel Jones will not have to look over his shoulder once and, the entire decade. That's what we're hoping for, at least, and hope this entire thing works out.
Yep.
And, for team need, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I can understand Isaiah Simmons. I know probably one of you will go there at least, and I can definitely get that pick. It would not annoy me one bit at all. But honestly, if I was making that pick right now in, February 10th, I would probably go with Andrew Thomas.
All right. That's fair. I mean, so when I first started diving into the draft stuff, I looked at Andrew Thomas, and initially I was like, this is the guy for the Giants. And then I kind of had this like wild thought that crossed my mind, and I know Ant also talked about this in one of his articles in terms of trading back and accumulating picks. But one of the thoughts that crossed my mind was the Giants can get Isaiah Simmons and a top tackle in the draft, and the way they can do it is they have to really leverage that 4th overall pick because they got Washington ahead of them, who's probably going to take Chase Young. And, we see these rumors, which are probably fake, about, Miami being like, oh, we want to move up to number 2. The Giants are in a pretty good spot with Detroit right in front of them to say, okay, we want to trade back and we can still get Isaiah Simmons. Because the reality is the 2 teams behind them, it's the Chargers and what's the other one? Miami, right? Yeah. Miami and Chargers, they can trade back with one of them and still get Isaiah Simmons. I'm seeing mock drafts with Isaiah Simmons being picked in the 8 to like 12 range.
Yeah, like the Jaguars.
So,
it's crazy.
Exactly. So we're talking about a guy that can drop that far. And if the Giants decide, okay, we want to trade back and accumulate that draft pick, they can probably swing a 2nd-round pick for it. Because if for a quarterback, if you're talking about Tua, who I just saw a report today that his hip motion is good, his health is relatively good, and everything is positive with the recovery. So that's a really good sign for the Giants. That's like gold into our ears if you're listening right now. Tua's health is so important for us because it allows us to trade back and accumulate more picks because Dave Gettleman is an idiot. Trading for Leonard Williams, this gives us the opportunity to say, okay, we can add a 2nd-round pick right now, trade back 1 or 2 spots, still get Isaiah Simmons, and now we have 2 2nd-round picks, right? 2 2nd-round picks that you can combine together and move up just like they did with DeAndre Baker. They can move up a pretty good amount into the 1st round with 2 2nd-round picks, and that could actually result in Andrew Thomas still being available. I know that's a little high. It might be a little high, but there's still Josh Stones and Mekhi Becton. There's a bunch of really good tackles that they can go out.
Josh Jones.
That's what I'm saying. From Houston, he's not bad. He gets to the 2nd level quick. He's a really, really big guy, just like Andrew Thomas. And there's a lot of really good tackles in this draft class. And if they move back and still get Simmons and a tackle, I think I would be so happy. Like, how happy would you be if the Giants managed to get Isaiah Simmons at linebacker to pair with Ryan Connolly And I'm really high on Ryan Connolly. I know he has a small sample size and people, shit on me for that all the time. But I think this guy is really good. He had, I think, was it 3 interceptions in like 3 or 4 games. And, he looked really athletic. He knows how to shoot the gaps. He can stop the run. And that's a guy, I think, pairing with Isaiah Simmons, who can, is another versatile player like Jabrill Peppers and Julian Love, pairing him with that's incredible, an incredible duo. And then having a tackle, come in the later of the first round, like now you have a tackle, your star linebacker, and now all that $80 million in cap space you can allocate towards, free safety and pass rushers and a cornerback. Like you can really turn this team around really quickly. And I know Anthony has a few ideas on up his sleeve about trading back and all the things he wants to do. So let's hear it, Anthony.
So as awesome as your scenario sounded, I'll bring one up that's even more unlikely. That is even more awesome. So number one, we're all in agreement. It's going to be Joe Burrow to the Bengals. But number two, I don't think that report's fake. I think the Dolphins are probably trying to trade up to number 2. It's just the Redskins probably aren't convinced that they want to move back. Chase Young, obviously, that's the man. They're going to want him. But let's say somehow the Dolphins do get up to number 2. And then let's say the Panthers and the Chargers both want Justin Herbert. And let's say one of them moves up to number 3. That means it goes Burrow, Tua, and then Herbert. And then that means number 4 to the Giants. Who else but Chase Young? So I'm not giving up hope. The dream is still alive. I'm hoping for Chase Young at number 4. But if Chase Young is picked anywhere from 1 to 3, then I think you have to trade back because, you can get back to 6, 7, maybe 8, wherever, or you can go back even further. You'll still be able to land an Isaiah Simmons. Worst case, you're going to land a generational receiver in Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb if you trade back far enough. And if you don't, you're going to get that left tackle that we're talking about. Andrew Thomas should be there. Jedrick Wills, Tristan Wirfs. One of them is going to be there no matter where you trade back to. And at the worst case, maybe you get your cornerback. Trading back, you get that player back there, plus all the extra picks, an additional second. We should be able to get an additional first-round pick, really, if someone's moving for a quarterback. Because if you look in recent history, you almost always get a first-round pick in next year. So we should be able to get that, and then, that's how you turn a team around really fast, like how the 49ers did it. You trade back. They traded back. Trubisky got taken by the Bears. All those extra picks, that helped them out a ton. And that's really that's the best thing to do if you're the Giants at this point.
Absolutely. Look at Nick Bosa. Yeah, exactly. The smart guys. And look at Gettleman, never traded back in his entire career.
He's the smartest guy, right?
Smartest guy.
He's got the guys. He's got the engineers in the back room, right?
He's got his computer
guys, whatever he calls them.
The computer guys, yeah. He's probably doing like Excel sheets for his like expense reports and stuff. Not actually doing anything for the team. Like I forget, like what team is it? Is it San Francisco or Seattle that has like a literal analytics guy like in the room upstairs, like in like the offensive coordinator room or in the coordinator room in general upstairs?
I think it's both of them.
It's both of them. Like they both have a guy. Like giving them real-time probabilities for what they should do on 4th down, whether they should kick a field goal or go for a touchdown, depending on the field position and time on the clock. Like these are the type of decisions. Like you can't beat analytics and probability with the sample size that they have from the past NFL games. So much data that they can use to, decide if this is a good or bad move. Obviously, you have to incorporate the talent you have on your team and the success rate, catch rates of your receivers and, average, yards per carry for your running backs. These are all really important things to consider. But the reality is, like, you can't really jump around analytics at this point in time, especially with football, using it so heavily in the modern era. And the Giants are so far behind with that. Like I wrote an article the other day saying they're finally accepting, like John Mara was finally saying, like we're finally accepting analytics and, making it a priority to consider these numbers as a part of our game plan. But like last year, seeing Pat Shurmur manage games in game, like the personnel decisions and the time management decisions, there's nobody telling him what to do on 4th downs. He's like, let's just do it. Like, let's just give it a shot. I'm like, guy, you're on the 30-yard line with 4 minutes left and 1 timeout. Like, why on your own 30-yard line? Like, punt the ball, use the 2-minute warning. Like, don't risk this right now because if you don't get this, and the probability with a crappy team like the Giants of actually succeeding is so low. that you're going to lose this game, and they did lose the game.
Then there were times where he wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like that
Mhm.
Patriots game in like week 6, whatever, on Thursday night. It was like a 4th and 5. They were down 10 with 9 minutes to go in the game, maybe even like 7 minutes to go, whatever it was. And he punts the ball, and you're like, oh, now you're not going to go for it. It just annoys us to no end.
Exactly, and like we're talking about punting it to Tom Brady and a New England offense that is so much better than the Giants, and I'm so happy to steal their special teams coordinator away. And Jerry Shuplinski, we talked about last week, quarterback coach, the guy helped develop Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, and probably learned more from Tom Brady than taught him. But like if he can instill honestly though, I'm like thinking in my head right now, like the Giants should just like offer Tom Brady like $50 million and just bring him as a quarterback's coach for Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Also, I actually saw this today. Tom Brady might leave New England for another team. He's like, this is the first time he's ever been on the market. And the reality is like, he doesn't have the same mojo he used to. Like, obviously age is going to take its toll. And last season we saw that. I know I see that grin on Anthony's face right now. Like, what is he talking about? But what do you think happens with Tom Brady? Do you think he's going to another team or he's staying in New England?
So I think he's staying in New England, but I know, Alex, you saw that controversial tweet I put out. Because, along with those Tom Brady rumors, there was that one strange report about there was 11 teams already interested, and one of them was the Giants. And, I mean, that is as confusing as it can be. But hear me out here. If they were to decide to sign Tom Brady, they could probably get a first-round pick for Daniel Jones, and then you could probably have Brady, Tua Tagovailoa, and Isaiah Simmons. And I wouldn't do it. It's so risky. I mean, if Dave Gettleman wants to be some sort of evil mastermind here, it's possible. And I mean, Brady, I'm sure he'd like to be in New York. It's a pretty good market. We got the money to pay him. He hasn't really ever been the top earner in the league, and we could definitely make him that. And I'm no way condoning that. So I hope people in the comment section don't absolutely kill me, which they probably will. And I shouldn't have brought this up.
They should kill him.
They will kill you for that.
Yeah, they're gonna kill me for this. But and I'm not supporting it at all. And I think Brady, at the end of the day, he's gonna stay in New England. What did they really lose? I mean, they lost their special teams coordinator, but they still have Josh McDaniels. They still have Bill Belichick. What is there to gain for Tom Brady to leave? I mean, just stay with the team that you're comfortable with and you've won 6 Super Bowls with, and go try and get a 7th, I guess. I don't know why he would want to leave.
I think Brady wants to win one without Belichick, honestly. I mean, I still think he stays, but I feel like for his pride reasons, because people, some people that are football fans are like, oh, he's a system quarterback, and some people still use that narrative. But if he wins one elsewhere, it's kind of like that narrative's over. I mean, he's just one of the greats. I think he's one of the greats, obviously. But,
of course.
I still think he stays, though.
No, I think he does, too. He's going to stay.
I don't buy that, though. I don't really think that he wants to go get one without him. I just think he wants to get another. I don't buy the whole like rumors that him, Kraft, and Belichick were having like a power struggle. I mean, that's so ridiculous. That's like middle school stuff, man. Come on, like you're winning Super Bowls and making millions of dollars. How can you be angry at each other for how successful you are? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Robert Kraft is clearly preoccupied in those, tug and goes. So I think
right down the street from me too in Jupiter, Florida. That happened 5 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
So I'm worried for your safety, bro. Robert Kraft might pop up in your dorm room one day.
Yeah.
No, I mean, realistically, though, Tom Brady is not going anywhere. And if the Giants were to offer him a contract, it would purely be like Dave Gettleman's writing himself a death wish. Like, I don't know what I would do. I think I'd probably just go to the XFL at that point. Like that would be the last straw. I'd be like, you know what, the New York Guardians is the way.
Let's go Guardians.
Matt McGloin.
Are we talking about that today?
Yeah, we are. We have to, because honestly, I was seeing some highlights and like they're like, oh, like our fans are so loud, they're so crazy, and like I just saw a picture and it was just MetLife like completely empty, but for the first row. It was like the first row. I'm like, they're so loud because you're probably putting like the microphone right in their face in the first row. I'm like, obviously they're gonna sound loud. It's just like, I mean, we're talking about a team like the Giants suck, and we all know that they've been sucking for a long time now. And they had like the 5th or 6th best turnout for fans last year. Yeah. Even though they suck, and like the Jets too. The Jets also sucked. Like we're talking about some of the worst teams in the league having the best fan turnouts. So like that just says that what's like the market, a lot about the market of New York. I know, Anthony, you mentioned that before. Like Tom Brady would be like, okay, If he was to go, it'd be because he can supplement, the Boston market with the New York market, which is equally as big, if not bigger. Despite me thinking that's like never going to happen in my lifetime. But I love Daniel Jones. Like, I don't think that they need another guy. I think they would just be hurting themselves by bringing Tom Brady in, because now, like you said, they would draft Tua in this like theoretical scenario. But the reality is, like, Tua's super injury prone, and Daniel Jones, while he has had a few injuries, he had that high ankle sprain last year. I don't even think he really got injured. I think that was completely made up for Eli Manning to just fill in and get that.
One game he should have missed. He was
That's
definitely fit for that second week. Yeah.
Oh, he was totally fine. Like, I don't even think he was really injured. He finished the game.
Yeah.
He finished the game. Was it the Packers, right? In the snow, he got injured. Like, he finished the game, and they were like, oh, yeah, he has a high ankle sprain. I'm like, if you've ever had a high ankle sprain, I just had one, like, a month ago. I could not walk for, like, 3 weeks. The guy finished the game in the freezing cold and then missed 2 weeks, like, spontaneously.
And Saquon played 2 weeks later with one, whatever it was,
That's what I'm saying. Like that's the thing.
We're not Saquon. We're not Saquon.
Exactly. We are not Saquon. I promise you. And but even Saquon had he had crutches too. Like, even Saquon was on crutches. Like, Daniel Jones was like, he was just walking around like nothing happened. I'm like, that was a complete, like, they made that for Eli. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it was great for Eli to go out on a win, even if it was against Miami. Like, that's just the reality of, like, how you send off a talent like that and a player that's won 2 Super Bowls for your franchise. But, like, if you saw John Mara, like, I'm thinking about all of this now, and, like, during the, his goodbye press conference, his retirement conference for Eli, like, you saw John Mara, he looked so upset. Like, he was saying goodbye to his best friend. And, like, that should tell you, and every fan, like, how much Eli meant to him, like, as a friend. And more than that, more like a family. And to get rid of him like that, every single coach that was coming in was like they were told Eli Manning is the priority. You have to make sure that he is treated like, a day camper. And I think, now that Joe Judge is coming here with a clean slate and without that baggage that kind of Eli brought with him, and John Mara, that connection, I think that this team is finally in a position to turn it all around, because it really is a fresh start. The quarterback is finally in place. They have a ton of cap space and draft capital. I don't think Joe Judge would have even accepted this job if he thought that his team was in a losing position. So, like, that's what I kind of want to finish off on. I think that we are in a good place. The Giants are making good progress. They have the capital to fix this team this offseason, and I think it should be really exciting. We're going to keep you guys updated with every single possible thing that you have, your questions, where I really want to get your guys' questions as well, and hit on the things that you guys want to know about, because that's really what we're here for, to answer your questions and make this enjoyable for everybody. So, on the next show, we want to, hear some stuff from you guys. Hopefully we'll get some voicemails involved eventually, and, make this really interactive for everybody. But, I want to give Anthony and Mike a chance to, say one final thing before we sign out on episode 2 of Fireside Giants. And I'll start with you, Mike, because I see, I feel like you have something to say.
I actually wanted to comment like 5 minutes ago, but I was letting you guys go. But the XFL, back to that. Their replay system was really good. I enjoyed it very much. I mean, the quality of game I watched kind of sucked. I was watching that 5 p.m. one yesterday, mainly because Pat McAfee was on the sideline. I wanted to see that. But yeah, but their replay system was great. They had like microphones on the refs, and it was just like they had like a ball placer as well, and it was just like moving really fast, and it just seemed natural. So I kind of wish the NFL would adapt some of those things. I mean, definitely not the style of play. I mean, I don't want to watch that. Even the kickoffs are pretty cool and stuff like that. But yeah. It was a good episode, so I was happy to be here, and looking forward to do it again next week.
Yeah, awesome. And I just want to say I'm happy to have you on, Mike. I'm happy to, get Fireside Giants going. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Check out our articles over at Empire Sports Media. Check us out on Twitter. It'll all be linked below. And I also want to clarify one more time. I love Daniel Jones. That's our franchise quarterback. Don't kill me. I believe in Daniel Jones. I really do. That was just kind of playful banter, devil's advocate. But, I think we're in a good position too, Alex. I think Joe Judge is definitely the right guy, and I think Daniel's the right guy. And I'm excited for this offseason. I'm excited to break it down on Fireside Giants with you guys.
Awesome, man. I'm really excited, and I'm going to include Anthony's address in the comments below, just in case you want to go Irishman on him and just, finish him off.
Paint the walls.
Paint the walls, baby. Let's go. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. I'm really excited to, come back next week and give you guys some more good commentary. Thanks to Anthony and Mike for being here, and we'll talk to you guys next time.